Now, let's look at some of the features. A new Unibelt passenger restraint system is used on four-door models of the Aspen and Volare. Unibelt is a single-strap lap and shoulder belt system with a retractor mounted in the door pillar. The user slides the buckle tab up to the turning loop before entering the car. Positioning the tab provides enough slack for the belt to reach across the lap. A new retractor mechanism allows the belt tension to be eased against the occupant's shoulder. It works somewhat like a window shade. The restraining mechanism works the same as on last year's models. The belt runs free until the vehicle decelerates rapidly. Then an internal pendulum swings forward and locks the seatbelt spool. Here's something to keep in mind. There are separate mechanisms for the left and the right side of the car. Make sure you have the correct part before you try to replace either one. A different type of restraint system is used on two-door models. The shoulder belt retractor anchor is located on the roof rail. The belt runs to the buckle tab and joins the lap belt. The lap belt runs to a separate retractor mounted next to the seat. The retractors are the same type used on 1975 Chrysler-built cars. The instrument panel is pleasing to the eye and easy to work on when servicing or replacing components. The panel is designed to be serviced entirely from the driver's seat. To gain access to the various components in the instrument panel, you remove the screws from the front lower edge of the cluster bezel. Then, pull the bezel outward to release the four clips at the top. The panel components look like this from the front, and like this from the back. The printed circuit board is part of the cluster assembly, which includes the speedometer, gauges, and indicator lights. The light bulbs are simple to remove and replace. In fact, the whole cluster can be removed by simply taking out a couple of screws and moving the cluster upward to free the shift indicator pointer from its slot. With the cluster bezel off, you can easily remove the radio and the heater or air conditioning controls, as well as headlight and wiper switches with very little effort. The radio speakers can be serviced by removing the panel top cover and safety pad assembly. Fuses and the turn signal flasher are readily accessible. Remove the snap-in door and they're right at your fingertips. If further access is needed, take out 7 screws and remove the lower panel cover. All these components plug in for easy replacement. The window mechanisms in the Aspen and Volare are designed for easy operation. And they should be familiar to you. They're the same type used in intermediate size 75 models. Adjustments are covered in your 1975 Intermediate Model Body Highlights reference book. The rear suspension isolation mounting on the Aspen and Volare is similar to that found on Chrysler Corporation full-size cars. The leaf springs are of conventional design with the axle mounted forward of the spring centers to reduce acceleration squat. ISO clamps mount the springs on the axle tubes. The parts are assembled with rubber isolators between the leaf spring and the ISO clamp. This eliminates metal-to-metal contact and cuts down the transmission of road noise and powertrain vibration to the body. Oval rubber bushings at the front ends join the springs to the body structure. They're designed to reduce starting and stopping shocks, as well as isolating noise and vibration. Rear shock absorbers have an eye mounting at the top and a spike mounting at the bottom. The new front suspension system for the Aspen and Volare is somewhat different from the familiar straight torsion bar system, so let's begin at the beginning. The backbone of this suspension system is the isolated front crossmember, also known as the K-member. It serves two basic purposes. First, it completes the front chassis structure. Second, all the suspension components are mounted on it. Rubber isolators separate the crossmember from the stub frame. These isolators prevent road noise and vibration from being transmitted from the K-member to the front structure of the car. The conventional straight torsion bar simply twists to provide spring action as the car passes over bumps too large for the tire to absorb. The torsion bar used in the Aspen and Volare is obviously different in shape. The new bar functions both as a spring and a control arm strut. Compare the action of a conventional torsion bar with the action of the new torsion bar. The mounting of the new torsion bar is somewhat different from the more familiar type. One end is mounted in a strut bushing, which is secured to the lower control arm. The bar extends through a cushion bushing onto the anchor assembly. The height adjustment is on the left side of the chassis for the right side torsion bar. And on the right side of the chassis for the left side torsion bar. A cushion bushing is located at the rearward bend of the bar. The cushion bushing and the strut bushing are installed during manufacture and become part of the torsion bar. Both can be replaced only as parts of a new torsion bar assembly. A sway bar is an integral part of the Aspen and Volare front suspension. The sway bar must be removed before you can replace a torsion bar. If you notice any scraped off paint on the sway bar or torsion bars after everything is completely assembled, be sure to touch up these areas to prevent rusting. When you reinstall a torsion bar assembly, attach it to the lower control arm first. Then attach the anchor end. That goes for tightening too. Lower control arm bolts first, and the anchor bolt second. Then the bolts for the cushion bushing. There are several things you must remember when installing the sway bar. An epoxy thread coating is used to lock the bolts in position when they're installed at the factory. Removal breaks the bond, so the bolts cannot be reused for this purpose. Replacement bolts are available through the parts department. Use only the correct coated bolts when reinstalling a sway bar, and be sure to torque all bolts to correct specifications. Another point to keep in mind is that the weight of the car must be on the wheels when you remove or install the sway bar. Just remember that the bar is under tension when the suspension hangs free. When adjusting torsion bar height, remember that bumper height is important and is determined by the height of the lower control arm pivot from the floor line. Check the specifications in the service manual before you make adjustments. A station wagon model is an offering in the Aspen and Volare lineup. You'll probably never see one in this stage of construction, but it's suitable for demonstration purposes. The liftgate is supported by two gas-filled props. The props are simple to remove and replace. Simply pry off the retaining clips to free the props. The liftgate wiring runs from the body through a small hole into the gate. This arrangement keeps the wiring for the heated backlight and radio speakers conveniently out of the way. There are also some air conditioning changes in Aspen and Volare. A new filter dryer replaces the receiver dryer used with previous air conditioners to hold the reserve liquid refrigerant charge. Also, an internal sensing thermal expansion valve, like the ones used on full and intermediate-sized cars, is used in the Aspen and Volare air conditioning system. The blend air unit for the system looks similar to the blend air units used in other models, with one major difference. The blower motor is mounted on the bottom of the inlet air unit and can be serviced from inside the car. And that's our story for this session, a sampling of the new features on the Aspen and Volare. Two bright new stars for 1976, designed to give the discerning car buyer a new dimension in luxury car ride, smooth handling, and money-saving servicing convenience.